I've been. Dreams are seeds we plant, my friend. Dusty boots, but a heart of gold. Your story's waiting to be told. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rising, small biz shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Cowbell ring and feel the beat. Hustle hard, don't take a seat.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7-8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Darrin Wurz. And Darrin started his journey going to college, wanting to go into teaching and education. Started to teach ninth grade science for about 5 years in Ohio, and then got burned out with education, decided to look for other things, so went back to school, got a degree in financing. Started his firm and put up a sign in his yard, just waiting for calls, and then eventually shifted over to building a website and figuring out how to do marketing, and did a lot of networking, built up the business and found his niche with attorneys, has a lot of good attorney clients, and wrote a book and got some things published, as well as starting a podcast, and continues to niche down onto law firm owners and building his team. So with that much as a quick introduction, welcome on the podcast, Darrin.
Thanks, Devin. Great to be here with you.
Absolutely, great to have you on. I'm looking forward to hearing your journey. So I just gave a quick overview to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack that a bit and tell us a little bit about your journey, starting off going to college, thinking you go into, or I guess did go into education and teaching for a little while.
Yeah, you got kind of the overview there. I initially wanted to be a science teacher. I kind of struggled with what to do. I think most kids do, but I kind of settled on that and went to college to get a degree in biology and education. So I did that, graduated, got a job teaching ninth grade science in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was an interesting time. I wasn't quite ready for, the world of teaching. You learn the concepts and you learn, the theory and everything in college, but no one really prepares you for the real world until you're there. I think that's probably the case with most things. Anyhow, I taught for 5 years. It was a great experience, but it was very energy demanding, and I kind of felt myself kind of getting burned out. I was doing a lot of different things. I was trying to start an engineering program. I've always been the kind of person who has to go above and beyond and kind of chart his own course and do things that no one else is doing, which is great, but it is a recipe for burning yourself out. So anyway, my dad was a financial advisor, and his dad before him. It's kind of a long family history. And dad always wanted to get me involved in the business. In fact, I became an investor when I was in middle school. I started investing in mutual funds, and so I got a lot of,
just one, sorry, not to jump in, but a follow-up question, because I always find it, I think, insightful. I was going to say, interesting, maybe insightful is a better word. So when you reach, or sometimes burnout where you just hit a dead end and one day to say, I hate my job and I want to do something different. And other times it's kind of more incremental. So there isn't just, one pivot point is kind of just coming to a overall conclusion. And so kind of maybe walk through, how did you kind of reach the point of saying, I'm done with this, I'm going to do something different? Or what was that kind of pivotal point where you kind of decided that it was time to go in a different direction?
Absolutely. I spent 3 years at this one particular school, and it was a charter school in Cincinnati, so we didn't have a lot of resources. We were working with a high needs population that needed a lot of support, and So we were trying to develop an engineering program, and we did a great job with it. I mean, we contacted a lot of engineering firms and architecture firms in Cincinnati. We built kind of a coalition. We developed a program of classes for students and got to go on field trips and bring in speakers. And it was really cool. We were trying to get kids more interested in STEM and science. I've always been a science nerd myself. Um, that all kind of came to an end when essentially the school shut down.
Mm.
There were some, I left a year before it really went down, but the writing was on the wall. They were being investigated by the state of Ohio, and there were some funny things going on with the books. So, yeah, they did get shut down. So I had to go to a different school, transition to eighth grade science at another school district. And I was like, okay, I've done this before. I can rebuild a program. And I found that I just didn't have the energy to do it all over again.
Mm.
So
So
I kind of
sounds
was re
like so it kind of
yeah.
sounds like maybe putting words in your mouth that you kind of reached it was a juncture to where you were probably it sounds like maybe reaching a bit of burnout, or at least you didn't want to start all over, and then it was the impetus of, hey, I don't want to start this over. School's shut down, what I put my heart and soul into, so let's do something different. Is that kind of a
Yeah.
reasonable summary?
That sure is, you know. And I didn't plan my transition to be that abrupt. I initially had the thought that I would go back to school and get a degree, a master's degree, so that I could, get paid more. And you can have your secondary degree in anything. It doesn't have to be in education.
Mm.
So I actually had started a master's in education, and then I was like, well, maybe I should have another skill set, right? In case I need to pivot. So,
Mm.
my family having been, financial advisors for generations, I got my master's in financial planning. And I thought, this would be great. I'll have another set of tools in my back pocket, and if any point in the future I decide I want to transition out of teaching, I can go ahead and do that. Well, as I learned more and more about financial planning, I became more and more excited about it, and excited about the prospect of working with clients. And that excitement started to become more than my excitement for teaching. And so uh, the real catalyst was after 5 years, in the state of Ohio, you're vested in your retirement plan. And so, I hit that fifth year mark, and I was like, all of a sudden that door opened up to me, and I was like, I could just be done at the end of this year. And I was like, the more that started to percolate in my brain, the more that sounded like a very tempting idea. And so I decided to let them know that that would be my last year.
Mm. So now,
Yeah.
so and you may have touched on it, but just to clarify, so did you finish the degree while you were still teaching and then made the shift to financial planning, or did you or make that jump and then finish up the degree?
Actually, I still had about a year to go, but I was well enough into the program that I had, the knowledge and tools under my belt. I felt like I was prepared to work with clients. So I finished my degree. I think it was the end of 2015. I can't remember. It was a while ago. Yeah. So I still had a little
Oh,
bit
right
to
on.
go. Yeah.
So now, so you finished the degree, come out, decide to get new financial planning, so kind of pick it up, or where'd you go from there?
Well, I really didn't have any. I mean, I didn't think I would be my own boss, my own business, but I started interviewing at different financial planning firms and reaching out to other financial advisors to see if they wanted to bring on, a co-advisor or a junior advisor or something. And, my family's in Toledo, Ohio. I was in Cincinnati, so I kind of had started my life there, and I wanted to stay in Cincinnati. So I started looking for jobs, and it was interesting because no one wanted to pay me anything more than I was making in education. And so I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense. So, um, and I had one potential good opportunity that could have been really good, but the guy I was talking with at the time, he kind of changed the deals he changed the terms kind of at the last minute. He wanted a bigger chunk of any clients that I would bring in, and I was like, I don't know if that's going to work for me. So I said, what the heck? Why don't I just, you know, do it myself? What's the worst that can happen? I fail and have to go back to teaching. Okay, big deal. I could do that. So, um, so yeah, I literally, I joined the family business. I used the family business name, but for all intents and purposes, I was operating my own office in Cincinnati, needed to get my own clients, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and had no idea how to do that, but I launched into it anyway.
No, that makes sense. So now you launch into it. So, and I think that I guess there are a couple of things. One is to figure out, what do you want to, or did it work out as well as, what you wanted or what you thought it would be? And how did you kind of go about building up that clientele? Because I think those are both, two kind of scary things. One is, you make the leap and say, hey, I'm burned out or I don't want to do this anymore. And you jump over to something else only to find out you don't like that any better. And then
Yeah.
even if you do like it better, it's still scary to go out on your own, have to figure out how to do marketing, sales, client development, running the firm and doing all those things. So kind of as you made that leap and started out, how did it go?
So yeah, I had to learn everything. It was trial by fire. I had this false assumption that, as a teacher, I would get paid through the summer. And so I had this false assumption that I could build up my client base in like 3 months and then that would be fine. Well, no, it took probably 2 years before I really was able to make a decent amount of money. So it was a struggle for a while. And I thought I could just call people. I could just, put a sign out in the yard, put an ad in the paper and I would get clients. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. And, when I came on board, Dad had always kind of done things. Dad was very old school. He had been of the generation where you just, pick up the phone and start calling people, and that worked. We didn't have a website. We didn't have anything at the time. But I think my biggest revelation is I was like, you know what? I've got to get out and I've got to meet people, right? I thought maybe teachers would be good clients, but teachers are very busy and they don't make a lot of money as teachers. They tend to retire millionaires, and then that can be a great point at which to work with them because they have the resources and they need assistance at that time. But younger teachers is not really necessarily a great fit. So I knew that I needed to get out and meet people. So I joined the Rotary Club and I got into that. And then through that, I found out about these other, networking events and business organizations like the Chamber of Commerce. And I just started going. I went to every event I could find, every single event in the community. And people would be like, Darrin, I see you at everything. What the? And it's, yeah. I signed up for literally every single thing, and I would meet as many people as I could meet and invite people to have lunch just to talk with them, tell them about, what I was doing, see if there was an opportunity to help them or help somebody that they know. And, little by little, I started to get clients over time.
So now, at some point, it sounds like it was maybe that was the genesis. But how did you shift to, you started out maybe trying with teachers and going that direction, probably because it was an area that you were familiar with, or otherwise, or been in that arena. What made you shift over, or kind of how did you start focusing on kind of attorneys and going the law direction?
Well, I knew that I needed to stand out because there are so many financial advisors, and we're all very similar most of the time. And I knew that I needed to have something that differentiated me. So we tried a number of things. I tried business owners for a while, and that worked decently well. I tried, people within 5 to 10 years of retirement. That turned out to be a really good niche to focus on because generally there's a lot of things that you can help people with in that zone. Um, so those things worked decently well. But being the I'm sort of an inventive person myself. I wanted to do things a little bit differently. There's still a lot of people that do that, a lot of financial advisors that are in those niches, and I was challenged by someone to just look through my database of clients and look for similarities. And so I did that. I looked and I saw a few things. One of the things I saw is that many of my clients were attorneys. And the wheels started spinning. I was like, well, maybe we could build a niche focused on attorneys. And I did my research at the time. This was probably 2018, 2019. And I, got on Google. I started looking, and you know what? Devin, I did not see any. I couldn't find them. Maybe they were there, but at the time, I couldn't find any financial advisors focused on attorneys. And I was like, huh, this seems like a blue ocean, so to speak. You know what I mean? So I started marketing to attorneys. I started, going to bar association events, doing CLE workshops on retirement planning for attorneys, or other corollary topics like tax planning, different things that could be helpful to them in running their practice. And those worked very well. Those were very well received. I started getting clients. Things were going very well. And then something happened in 2020. We all know the pandemic. And for me, it happened at the right time because I was already starting to shift into a very narrow focus. And so it actually forced me and challenged me to think more broadly. I had been very local in my efforts, but at the time I was like, okay, we got to do something different. And so I started doing webinars and opening them up to anybody, who wanted to attend. And before I knew it, I was attracting clients from all over the place, from East Coast to West Coast. And I was like, oh, this is very interesting. So that's kind of how initially evolved and how I started to kind of go in that direction.
And how long, kind of over what period of time did you kind of figure out your niche and kind of figure out how or that was the direction you wanted to go?
Well, it took a couple of years, and even after that, it still needed some refinement. I also wrote a book. I wrote The Lawyer Millionaire and was fortunate to have it published by the ABA, which was really cool, and started the podcast. And, it was very focused on lawyers, but as I worked more and more with lawyers and I started to network in legal circles, I found that I really enjoyed working with law firm owners specifically. Solo attorneys, small law firm owners who have the challenge of being a business owner and practicing law, and I found that they have a lot more things that they need help with from a financial planner. And there's bigger, more challenging issues to solve. So we started honing
No.
in on that, and the time frame was, I started tinkering with this niche like 2018. We really honed it in to law firm owners like in 2023. So it was like kind of maybe a 5 year time frame of really iterating our process and honing it in to a specific group of people and really perfecting it.
No, that makes sense. So now, so you say you take that time, and I think that's probably a natural evolution for a lot of businesses. A lot
Yeah.
of times you'll start out broader because you don't know exactly where you want to focus or what you're going to do. And then as you kind of niche down and you figure that out, then you kind of evolve to go in that direction of what you enjoy and what you're good at. So now you did that for, you take that 5 year period or so to niche down. So that catch up to 2023. So now as you kind of define that as your niche and otherwise gone in that direction, kind of how have things evolved or where, how have things gone over the last couple of years and what direction has that continued to go for you?
Yeah, we continue to perfect our process and we've started to grow our team, which is really exciting. So we have 3 team members. We had 4, but now we have 3. Um, but I have 2 planners that work for me full time, and then my executive assistant, and then we're looking to add more folks to the team. It's been a journey of just really perfecting the process and really figuring out what works. You know, I s- People ask me, do you want, are you willing to take on other clients? And yes, I have a lot of other clients who are not lawyers, and we have the capability to serve them too. But the service delivery model that we've created is very law firm owner specific, because we have spent so much time really perfecting it and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Um, what are the real pain points that they have? How can we address those? And I think at this point we've really got it down to a science. And at this point now, it's just how do we scale this? How do we continue to grow it? How do we continue to build out the team? How do we productize it, right? And make it really systematic so that it's easy to deliver over and over again. And it's going to be exciting to see how that evolves over time.
No, it always is, and that you kind of touched on it. But I'll ask the follow-up question. So now, as you do kind of figuring that out and looking out, if you were to say kind of the next 6 to 12 months, kind of where do you see things headed, or what's next in store for you?
Oh yeah. So, this is what's fun about working with law firm owners is one of the big things that they need help with is how to grow their business. And so we've become, students of that in learning how to grow our own business and who we need to bring on. And so we'll be adding more team members. One of my favorite books is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And I actually, his book was one of the first catalysts for me in helping me figure out, okay, how do I go from a solo to a team and start to build out a business. And so my executive assistant was my first hire, trying to offload that administrative bottom rung of the ladder. And then client delivery, I have my two planners who work with me now. I think there's more admin stuff that needs to be offloaded. So I think next we're probably looking to bring on like a client services associate, someone who can really give the clients a very white glove experience and helping them with anything they need help with logistically. And then from there, we'll just continue to work up the ladder. I think there's some more client service folks that I want to bring on, either planners or paraplanners who can work with the clients. And then, from there, we'll replace other functions like sales and marketing.
Cool. Well, sounds like an exciting time yet ahead, and plenty of good opportunities. So it should be a good time
Yeah.
for you. So perfect. Well, now as we've kind of reached to the present day of the journey, and even touching a bit on where things are headed, great time to transition to the two questions I always like to ask towards the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
Worst business decision I ever made. Um, that's a tough one. There have been definitely some challenging things as we've had to figure out what works for our niche. And we're constantly in a state of trying to figure that out. It's constantly experimenting and tweaking. Um, hmm. I'm sure there's some really bad ones.
Just pick any given one, the one that you maybe made a mistake, or if you look back in time, you wish you could do something
I
different.
I do have one. We did make it relates to hiring.
A lot of good mistakes there. So yeah, go ahead.
I've learned a lot about hiring. I've learned that you don't just hire the next person who comes along. You don't just hire a family member because they're available and they can work a few hours for you. You really need rock stars on your team. And I see a lot of this. I see a lot of small business owners, a lot of law firm owners who hire family members because it's who they know. They hire who they know. But for me, that didn't work out very well. I mean, nothing wrong with who we hired and the work that they did necessarily, but they weren't a true A player. And nothing wrong with them as a person, but it wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good match. They were not operating in their unique zone of genius. They had some opportunity, they had some time, and we had some work that needed to be done, so we brought them on to do some work. Okay, great. But it wasn't something that was going to work long term because it wasn't a good alignment with their true gifts. So one of the biggest lessons I think it's really hard for business owners and law firm owners to figure out is letting people go is okay. And it's not anything wrong with them. You're not, You're not inflicting pain on them. You are actually helping them. You're helping yourself as much as you're helping them because you want people to find a place where they are really happy, they enjoy the work they're doing, and the work they're doing is lined up with their unique gifts. That is one of the most important things. So, yeah, I think I don't know. I hesitate to say maybe it was the worst business decision, but it wasn't a great one. But it was one that we fixed.
Yeah, and that's always a hard one. I think you hit on number ones. It's everything from sometimes you just hire the next. I'm not to be rude. Next breathing person, or person that can fill a seat.
Sure.
And you think, hey, everybody will work hard. It'll be the great fit. You know, they're if you're smart and you work hard, it'll work out. And even if you're smart and work hard, it doesn't always fit everybody's personality. Maybe where they're the most competent, or have the most skill, or the enjoyment kind of is teacher versus doing finance. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you enjoy it. And so making those decisions, figuring out who's the right fit and where to slot them in, as you said, I think sometimes it's better to identify, hey, this isn't a good fit for you and we want to let you go, not because you're not a great person and haven't done a good job, but just because we want you to find what makes you excited and enjoy and what you enjoy. So I think that's definitely a great one to hit on. Second question I'd like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb you'd recommend?
Ooh. The one rule of thumb, I mean, there's so many, but I think the biggest thing would be to have some kind of a written plan, have some goals written down about where the business is heading. I was actually fortunate because in, one class I took, college in, degrees don't prepare you for the real world. It's funny because one of my employees has an MBA and I'm like, oh, great. So you can help our clients with business planning. He's like, my MBA is worthless. So, but one class I took was in business development and they give us this one-page business plan template to use. And I actually used it. I used it from day one. And I don't know, it must have worked because our business grew, hand over hand, year after year. I mean, our business doubled and tripled and quadrupled. And it was just simply the biggest elements were, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years? Okay, let's break that down. And where do I want to be at the end of this year? What does that mean? How many new clients do I need? What are the activities I need to engage in to get those new clients? It's not rocket science, but having it written down somewhere and setting those goals and setting those benchmarks and determining what are the activities I need to engage in to actually make things happen, it gives you so much clarity.
No, I think that's definitely a great rule of thumb and a great takeaway. So, well, now as we are wrapping up towards the end of the episode, if people do want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, we've created a new website, lawyermillionaire.com, and we've got everything there that you can learn about all the stuff we do, the podcast, the book. We have a masterclass series, which is a series of events that we do monthly. So you can go there, you can learn about all the stuff, you can get involved if you want to get involved. And there's a link, there's a page there too where you can schedule a consult with our team if you'd like to talk more.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. Couple more things as listeners, and make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Sounds good. Thank you, Devin.
The road ain't straight, it's got a bend. Dream plan, my friend. Dusty boots, but a heart of gold. Your story's waiting to be told. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rising, small be shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Cowbell ring and feel the beat. Hustle hard, don't take a seat. Every step you're blazing trail. Inventive journey never fails.